Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and people who aren't necessarily boys or girls, but are somewhere in between, or from space. Whatever. You wonder what it would be like if you were to take Zelda, mix it in with a bowl of God of War, add in a couple of tablespoons of Metroid Prime, and just for good measure, sprinkled in a little bit of Devil May Cry? Well, let's find out. Alright, let's do this. Abracad... Combine them all into something different. Or something. What's this? Darksiders. Man, look at this cover art. Let's try this out. Yep, this is Darksiders for the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and PC. A game that seems particularly interested in taking one of Nintendo's classic franchises, tweaking the mechanics out a little bit, mixing in a couple of other game elements in there, and throwing it all into a much more mature setting. And what could possibly be more mature than the end of the freaking world as we know it? You tell me.
Do you know what's imprisoned here? There are things even you should fear, horseman. Story.
A really long time ago, during a really long time period, the kingdoms of heaven and hell had been locked in what seemed like eternal battle. Until one day, a third kingdom, the kingdom of man, suddenly kinda popped up out of nowhere. Both the holy and unholy armies declared a ceasefire under the request of the Charred Council, a governing entity whose enforcers were none other than the Four Horsemen themselves. This truce would remain in effect until 7 seals were broken, when the Council had finally felt that humanity was ready for what they would consider the End War, the ultimate battle to determine the fate of the universe. Ages pass, and then one day, the 7th seal was broken. As the people of Earth went about their daily lives, they would come to make mankind's home the final battleground. And because nobody really got the memo, well, humanity wasn't very prepared for the encounter, and holy shit. And that's when he arrives. War. One hell of a badass horseman who goes around tearing shit up until he realizes that he's made a big mistake. Turns out that the seals were completely intact, and War was tricked into starting the apocalypse early and committing treason against the Council, whose laws he has sworn to uphold.
What in heaven's name have you done?
I answer the call.
Now, stripped of his powers, War must walk the earth once more to seek the one who was responsible, carry out vengeful justice, and fuck up a lot of shit along the way. Can War clear his name and defeat the Destroyer? Well, that is for you to find out, correct? Darksiders is a third-person hack-and-slash adventure-type game. As mentioned before, it tends to base a lot of its central mechanics around the Zelda series, whilst also borrowing from a couple of other games. You'll traverse vast lands, explore treacherous dungeons, and slay countless enemies, all while regaining and upgrading War's powers and adding to his arsenal of weaponry. You'll be spending a good deal of your time in dungeons, as they're both common and frequent. While the dungeons themselves are built like they are in Zelda, the actual world itself is a lot more like Talon 4 or Planet Zebes rather than Hyrule. All the different areas are connected, usually through some kind of obstacle-covered pathway. Fortunately, you won't have to do as much traveling as you might think. Most of the areas have a place where you can find a wandering demon merchant named Volgrim, who's awesome, by the way.
Feed my hunger, and I'll feed your curiosity.
In addition to selling you stuff, he'll also let you travel through serpent holes that'll let you get from previously discovered area to previously discovered area. And I'm pretty sure that this is not how serpents travel. Cool name, though. One of the more God of War-inspired things about the game is the fact that you'll be collecting a lot of souls. Green souls are for health, blue souls are for currency, and yellow souls are for increasing your wrath gauge, which is basically this game's magic meter. Speaking of money, Volgrim, that awesome dude. Not only can you buy a shit ton of combos for your sword off of the guy, but you can also purchase a scythe, which has its own shit ton of combos that you can buy, as well as extra attacks for your secondary weapons, and wrath powers, which actually aren't as useful as one might think. As you've probably guessed, the Watcher is pretty much the stand-in for Navi in this game, although unlike Navi, you're probably gonna want to hear this dude talk whenever you can possibly make him, because some of the shit this dude says.
I never did like going to church. Let's get the queen and make this a short mass. I have to admit, for a bunch of weaklings, those humans were full of surprises. This is for all the cookies, horseman. When you proceed, there's no return. How in the nine hells did I end up shackled to you?
He can actually be pretty helpful when he's not being a complete dick, and he's usually good at pointing you in the right direction whenever you need him to. New weapons and power-ups tend to come at you at a pretty fast and furious pace, and, as you might have guessed, many of them adhere to the Zelda standard. The crossblade is the boomerang, that big-ass gauntlet thing is the megaton hammer, the earth collar horn is the Deku leaf, I guess, the abyssal chain is the hookshot, the mercy is, well, a gun, which is kind of where the Devil May Cry part comes in, and the Void Walker is... oh boy, it's the portal gun. They went there. The cool thing about the weapons in the game is that even though they do have situational uses, they also have practical uses in combat. Well, except for the portal gun, but that thing is useless outside of the dungeon you get it in, so that doesn't matter. That doesn't count. Fuck that. Oh yeah, and what good is a horseman without his noble steed? Yeah. Ruin is awesome. Overall, though, the game's got a pretty solid structure. Many of the mechanics work well with a couple of minor exceptions, but we'll get into that later.